Around 5 years ago, I started my journey as a game developer with knowledge of Python and basics of C++. I always wanted to make a game when I was a child playing on the PS2, but I started my real journey around 2020 during COVID. One of the first things I wanted to plan out was the type of game that I want to make. I knew Metroidvanias and roguelikes are popular, but those genres are really not what I consider my type of game, but I do enjoy them, just not what I want to make. One of the genres that I'm really fan of are arcade style running guns, with a-directional shooting and cool looking levels, something like Contra or Metal Slug. I want these videos to explain my thought process for making a game and the path I took along the way. Why did I decide to make my game? And what's my inspiration for making my game? Well, like every single fan of running guns, I really enjoy the Metal Slug and Contra series. These type of games are one of my favorites when it comes to playing and enjoying these games. My main motivation for creating these games is that I don't really see a lot of running guns, arcade style running guns being made today. Yes, you can find something that is similar in those aspects, not what I consider a running gun. Many people confuse Mega Man or platform shooters with running guns, which are not the same thing. There are also games that I don't enjoy, like twin stick shooters, which are like running guns, but not what I'm specifically looking for personal reasons. And so I decided to, as a solo dev, make a running gun of my own. This game was to test my technical knowledge of game development, how can I manage a large project on my own, and releasing my first ever financial project on Steam. I used GDScript for programming, Blender for 3D, Krita for 2D texturing, and Audacity for the audio. Now, I did use a lot of public assets as they allowed me to save a lot of time, but that's enough talk about how I created this game. Now, let's talk about what this game really is. The game that I'm working on is a run and gun game that is inspired by Contra Shattered Soldier. Wait, Contra Shattered Soldier. Yeah. The game will have around 5 to 6 levels of action-packed run-and-gun gameplay, and each level will look different too, but each level will also have unique enemies that only appear in that level. I also added a lot of special weapons in my game. We do have the common spread shots, lasers, and all of that, but there's also a lot of other special weapons in my game that will be activated with the charge button. However, you can only charge your weapon when you have enough energy, which you will gain by defeating enemies. So you will have to use and manage this ability with extreme caution. Whether you use this in a difficult situation or you use this during a boss is up to you. I also added a lot of replayability in my game, as I see a lot of run guns don't have that. I think replayability is one of the main factors of running guns because they have a very low playtime. You can complete the entire game in one sitting, half an hour or an hour, depending on the size, and replaying that game is the aspect of running guns. Now, what makes my game have replayability? The number one thing are multiple difficulties. In easier difficulties, you will have around 5 health, which makes the game easier than the traditional 3. In normal, you will have 3, and on the higher difficulty, you will only have 1 with no checkpoints. So that will be an extremely high level challenge for people that have mastered the game. Whenever you complete a level, you will be given a rank depending on how well you performed in that level. So, if you did well, you will be given an S rank. If you did poorly, you can be even given a D rank. In this way, the game will promote high replayability and allow the user to challenge himself and get better ranks. All of these ranks will then be recorded in a rank screen that is accessible from the main menu. And getting better ranks will also unlock new skins and extra abilities for the player to use. As for people that want an even bigger challenge, you can play this game in arcade mode, in which you will have to complete the entire game in one sitting with limited number of retries. Also, in arcade mode, if you are good enough, you will have to go through a super secret boss fight that can only be fought against in this mode. This will be the ultimate challenge of the game. you also get an achievement by completing arcade mode. So for people that really want it, you will have to go through this entire playthrough. The game is also mostly complete and will be released in this year, meaning 2025, if everything goes well. If you're interested in this type of game, you can wishlist this game down below with the link. I also plan on making this game not expensive and around the $10 range at maximum or cheaper, so it will be accessible to many people. One more aspect of my game that I spent a lot of time working on were mini bosses and main bosses in my game. I planned on making these boss fights as interesting as I could, but also balancing their difficulty. I added at least one mini boss in each level, and I hope people enjoy fighting these bosses as much as I enjoyed creating them. Another thing I really want to talk about in my game is that this is kind of annoying when I'm playing run and guns, and I see a lot of developers make this mistake where they'll have enemy projectiles match the color with the player projectile. So if the enemy projectile is yellow, the player bullets will also be yellow, and this is something that is extremely annoying in games that I see, especially in run and guns or like shmups, which it's not gonna happen that much in shmups, but it does happen in some run and guns where they'll have matching projectiles. So I paid attention to that in my game, and I made all of the enemy projectiles like pink color or something like that, which is something that the player can instantly see and say, okay, that's the enemy projectile, I'm not gonna touch that. Because when you're making decisions in a run and gun, you have like 0.5 seconds or 0.2 seconds to make some decisions there. So I paid attention to that aspect as I well. And if somebody's listening to this, and he wants to make a run and gun as well, I hope you don't make that mistake, because that is very annoying when you're playing a level and somebody does that. So that was very important for me early on to make that distinction when making my game. I want my games to also be not considered, too safe, so I added a lot of blood and explosions in it. I didn't want to add too much gore and explosions to basically just, desensitize or something that's like too much, where the player can't even see what's happening. But I also want my game not to be like modern, games, which a lot of modern games are just too safe in my opinion, or like too extreme. So I want a balance in that, where it's not a game that I would consider, anybody could, look and play, but I also don't want my game to be too safe where it doesn't have any kind of edge into it. So that was very important to me when making my game. I also plan on making, after this project, hopefully when it's done, similar kind of arcade games. So I know a lot of people that play, arcade style retro games are older heads, and they're kind of very critical of their games. They like to give criticism. So if you have any like good criticism, because I know you probably have played other games as well, or any way I can improve my project or future projects, I would very much appreciate it if you could leave a comment down below on what I have to work on. Because whether this game is successful or not, I still plan on making future games like these. So any kind of insight would help me a lot in my journey, and I hope this video would give some insight into my thought process of what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to make. So that's going to be it for this video. I really just wanted to talk about my game and my inspiration for making this game. If you find these type of videos interesting, you can like and subscribe and the usual stuff. I'll be making more devlogs for this game or other projects in the future, so stay tuned for that, and that will be it for this video. Thanks.